Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Transformation Leaders Podcast. I'm joined today by a good friend of mine called Shishir. He runs Datenintelligenz, and I probably pronounced that wrong because it's a German descent there, and my German's are a little bit weak today. But nonetheless, he is a wealth of information with regards to data intelligence, anything and everything historic, solving historical problems that have been plaguing the industry forever. And then, of course, modernizing that with some new tools, tying this all into AI. If you guys are wondering where my co-host, Sean Ennis, is, unfortunately, he became ill last week. He's on the mend. Don't worry, everything's fine there, but he'll be back with us again next week on the podcast on Wednesday. So without any further ado, what I want to do is to bring up Shishir's website where he has all this information available online, so that anything that you hear today, if you have any further questions, want to get a hold of the company or even Shishir himself, you can do so there on the website. Got the URL at the bottom for you guys to type it on in, or you can just scan it with your phone, and we'll leave that there. Now, I will leave another QR code in the top left corner for the duration of the show. That way we can have his site available to you at all times. So hopefully you guys have had a chance to scan or type the code. I'll go ahead and I'll leave the text version of it down here on the screen. But to get started, let's start talking about the use case here where data has been plaguing industries for years and years and years. And the reason usually that happens is because of this technical debt that comes across. When we were talking backstage, one of the use cases that I had mentioned was that you have an accounting system that is maybe no longer there. And then all of a sudden somebody built a widget or a tool based on that data or that database. So the tool, the main software is gone, but you can't get rid of the database or the underlying data because this tool depends on it like a critical function in the business, like payroll. And so this happens more often than not. And so as time goes by, years go by, decades go by, this technical debt accumulates. And this is this age-old problem. And AI has done nothing but accelerate the problem and also accelerate the solution to the problem kind of at the same time. So it's a little bit of an oxymoron in terms of that. So maybe you could kind of start talking a little bit about, why folks typically or generally reach out to you for any type of expertise or the services that you offer.
Yeah, sure. So first, Datenintelligenz, and you're pretty close to pronouncing it right, so it's good. Yeah, it's a German, for data intelligence. So we found the domain, and we incorporate the company in that same name as well. We're kind of parallelly thinking on that. But yeah, so I've just 10 seconds about my background. I've spent years in the U.S. and Silicon Valley consulting, CRM, e-commerce, business systems, and then India in tech operations and technology services roles with companies like HCL, Emphasis, and like 15 years been a tech entrepreneur. Further details, my LinkedIn is there. People can see and but so yeah, so what's happening is in the AI world, and people. So you talked about the use of payroll. Now payroll obviously is a very critical application. Whether it's a small company, big company, both alike. For larger companies, even more critical. I mean, for everybody, right? Finance is kind of the backbone of every business, right? So if something goes wrong there, you're stuck with that. You kind of you're stuck. So with AI, let me say, in a generic, AI implementation models, right? The key challenges are that what in the maturity curve that AI has gone through so far is that ROI expectations have been very, very aggressive. 6 months magic will happen. Which doesn't happen till 18 months. Or maybe more. And people want to see, hey, I want to see how it works. My UI, my data, my things, my application infrastructure, my business model. So I can shoot a glossy presentation with screenshots to my CEO and say, hey, you know what? I got the bang on this render, is going to be exciting stuff, right? And so more so when data is involved, because data is, basically 0-1 numbers, digital, kind of truth, right? It's even more so important to see what is going to come out after the POC, even before the and in the project stats, right? So now obviously, so what we do. I'll come to the question why people. What we do, for example, is we use synthetic data, a bunch of open source platforms available, websites available, tons of them. I'm happy to share with you. Later you can share with the audience where you can actually, generate synthetic data, understand business models, application landscapes, architecture, infrastructure, what they're trying to achieve. Based on that, create synthetic data. So and create a POC quickly if you have obviously an application level product, etc., like we do, and within hours actually, and show how it will work with obviously all the great UI, and how your data is flowing, etc., and obviously with obviously all the risks and potential, dependables, etc., like training, change management, things going wrong, scalability, hack attacks, etc., right? So that can happen, right? And and not payroll obviously is sensitive to in the entire kind of spectrum of size of the company or the industry of the company. But let's say large company even doing, let's say, large manufacturing, or trading house which has, let's say, 10 countries or 20 countries, it's not very big, or there, if you say 50 or 100 users across distributed across locations are using a simple data application with actually maybe manually feeding it or using a 20-25-year-old tool, whatever, right? Touching that, can cause big problems, because one single point of failure, right? Or one thing fails, then it could disrupt the entire system, the entire business model, right? Right? So there obviously that concern is there. So there are kind of controls you can build around that as well with the application, right? So now, so again, so exactly, yeah. So basically, synthetic data allows that to happen, and synthetic data can be built not just on the current use case you're looking at, but also predicting, that hey, what, if you transform your data in such a form, right? There'll be a cost and there'll be a time, there'll be a effort and there'll be time involved. But this is the kind of value you could generate. This is the kind of cost saving or efficiencies or speed or use human errors that you could generate, right? So for example, synthetic data has used a lot of LLM retraining models. There are 15, 20 ways of retraining LLMs, right? Contextual RAG applications, for example. So synthetic data use a lot in that as well. Why companies come to us? Because two reasons. One, we focus primarily on in-house on-prem secure solutions, right? We work with Llama 4 and Grok 2.5, which are Grok 4 also, but Grok 2.5 is open source, Grok 4 is on the cloud. So that you have the database, your application, your database, which is the solution which will touch on our application, everything inside your firewall. Obviously there'll be calls to APIs, etc., will go on the wire, but they will not be what your business user prompting on what they want the application to do. For example, if let's say I'm not kind of competing with try to say Copilot or Cloud is bad, but let's say we have 100,000 Copilot licenses, you're actually asking it, hey, how do I do my marketing plan, etc., etc. That entire thing is going on the cloud, hitting like 25 different servers, etc., and coming back, right? Here you actually because they build like that, right? They use all the so you actually going internally, right? And what goes out is, let's say, yeah, okay, send me information about this news API or this is right. That doesn't cover what you are asking about your business, right? Information, business intelligence, how you're trying to expand your marketing, your recruiting, your your operations, what you're trying to do. You don't want to sell even because hack attacks also become very easy with data with AI, right? You can do billions of brute force attempts and hack any password in the world, right? In like a few hours, if not minutes, right?
So essentially, just let me ask a clarifying question here. You're describing a situation where the user's just having a simple use case, using AI the way they've been trained, or intuitively they just may know how to use it, or just ask it general questions. And so you're describing this problem of the data going inside out, only to come right back in a loop. And then that leaves a lot of vulnerabilities because of the surface area is much larger. Users don't think about this. Leadership doesn't think about this because it's kind of in the architecture of the way things are. And so the main thing for leadership to hear when you're hearing things of that nature, you put the pressure on your IT teams, you tell them to get something done. You probably are giving them an unrealistic expectation because you yourself, from the board or from other partners, are under tremendous pressure to deliver something quick. And in that haste, that's when all of these bad things start to unfold.
Yeah. And, I'll give you an example of, without naming the client, there's a fairly mid-sized company when we talk to them, we send them an intro. They say, okay, let's talk. They just when we told them this is what we can do, they just shut us down. They say, are you crazy? Please don't go away. So I actually sent a unsolicited email to the head of analytics, with the attached POC demo. He said, hey, you know what? We built this. We took the data, built a not a long, the 4-minute, 5-minute demo. This is how it will flow. Attached, and then I attached the tech stack, etc. Also, in case you want to look at. And then 2 days he called me back and he could run the client. So that same thing, right? And again, I can talk about Nike because Nike we never run that client. So, but we've talked to Nike, and obviously I'm sure. But we talked to the customer kind of marketing teams, but so they didn't want to listen. They say, hey, etc. Yeah. But that's the larger companies, right? I mean, this healthcare client, we were talking about payroll and data changes that they have 180 countries. I got an email from him yesterday. Shishir, we're still looking at it, but let's wait a little bit more. Like last I got them in November, said next year, so I'm actually can come in May. I told them, hey, I still okay. We've got this new things coming, etc. Right. But anyway, but I'm just saying, but those are things that will stay, and they're not, even so AI is still not magic, right? And they're not, unfounded, fears, right? It is a risk, right? Despite all the guardrails, despite all the checks you put in, right? If it's distributed and if it's a large set of users using it, the training, change management, and the new system, will it actually produce the result which it was, which the planned architecture will? There will be risks, and there are those fears. So they're not unfounded totally, but a lot of it can be reduced. And once they see it working, with their data, with UI, with their application infrastructure, and then the tech guys look at the tech stack, then it's very easier. So that's something to. And the second part is they come to us because we don't do data rooms or video intelligence or kind of things. We can always do that, but we focus on secure solutions. Use case, for example. So we have 3 customers in Europe, right? We have only 1 in US, right? Europe and South America, like other places, are even if it's your data, you can't build applications and put it on. EU Act doesn't allow you to put it on the internet, right? You can't access cloud APIs for certain applications. You want all that in house, right? Those things.
Do you have the experience that a lot of the companies that have the biggest needs, as well as the biggest offenders of data breach, data security, talking about that surface area, unfortunately and ironically at the same time, are the highly regulated industries? Think because they're highly regulated that they would really just kind of have their I's dotted, the T's crossed, everything set up. But I find that in my experience that in those sectors or verticals even, that there are very few people that know all of the regulatory guidelines. A lot of the people that are in the trench just doing the work, they're not as versed, or the developers that are developing it. It's not until it leaves QA. So you got the normal development life cycle, but then you have this whole regulatory QA piece of it. And it's like the blind leading the blind, because they'll just get reports back saying this is wrong, that's wrong, and a checklist, but no real business understanding what problem they're trying to solve. And it's 6, 7, 8 iterations to solve the same bug or the same data leak. And I think a lot of the challenges behind the curtain. So if you're, again, in leadership hearing this, you really need to do a better education in your sector for getting your data compliance team to educate the development staff so they're working together as a team, that regulatory and compliance team isn't separate from that department.
Absolutely.
You need to
and actually, absolutely. And I know. In fact, a lot of if in fact if you're trying to build and let's say do a data intervention, even though we'd like to jump in, sell the entire solution right away, I would actually we normally suggest, hey, what, you do an internal audit yourself. For example, you could use our interpreter, whatever. Use our interpreter to obviously get your data, get your business user understand what it looks like, what it's what it talks, etc. Get your tech users understand what business requirements, how they translate to what can be built, right? Then build to the build mode, right? And obviously there'll be the change management training part. That's like the third part. But so for example, obviously you're aware, right? A lot of the big consulting firms, right? Deloitte has launched their own enterprise AI platforms they're secretly building. Days after clouds and Frontier, OpenAI's Frontier came in, agentic AI. Accenture's bought, I think, 2 companies totaling $1 billion or $2 billion. Deloitte is saying there are 19,000 enterprise customers, they want to 90% plus, they want to have them use that product. So they're becoming all tech oriented, and obviously, and so they also have, I'm sure, and obviously Deloitte is a lot of risk consulting and all these, etc. But the technology risk is there as well, and whether it's a small company, big company, and the more complex the use case, obviously the risk goes higher, right? Because it's not been done before. The best practice here internally, even if the vendor understands it, the stakeholders don't understand it, right? The buyer or the user don't understand it. So those senses are there. But yeah, exactly, yeah. That's those vulnerabilities, and understand, right? Just from a cybersecurity perspective as well, right? Not just how it will work and what value, what vulnerabilities throws up, what gaps in the ecosystem application throws up, right? For internal or external users to kind of hack it, or is it going to be weaker? Is it going to make the application slower, etc. Kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's really the difference of delivering something that is checking the box, meaning the bare minimum, right? You got these rules, these regulations, you've got the whatever. But if you really want your product to excel, and also kind of take things up to the next level, it'll never happen unless the team developing the product has the foresight knowledge to know why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Most developers I find that I've worked with, if they understand the business need, they understand, they have the technical chops or even the technical acumen. But the point here is that having that understanding creates not only software that hits or meets the bar, but exceeds that bar. And as new zero-time threats come on out, you're getting ahead of that much faster. I want to switch or pivot slightly to bring another common use case that I see a lot of times, and we'll use AI because unfortunately everybody's both sick of hearing it. At the same time, they're also still having to deal with it. And so this problem is that their AI projects have been put on hold or stalled because they're under and I'm going to use a word that may be controversial. They feel like they can't move forward because the data is stuck in a state to where it's either going to be exposed or not secured, or it's so dirty that AI can't really make heads or sense of it, which means you can't run it, or you don't want to run it through embeddings because the costs to ingest, to embed, to do whatever, to repeat this multiple times after data gets taken care of. I've always answered the solution this way. And since this is your area of specialty, I've got years where I've done data stuff as well. And I've been solving these challenges for about 30 years. And I've used a technique back that I used in, the late 90s, early 2000s. And it's called a hybrid database. So rather than fix the problem data, you create a centralized database with the only intent and purpose of it is the nexus, and think of a spoken hub. At the hub is this database that I'm describing. And through ETL, it does the transformation. It might pull from a payroll or accounting. It might pull from IAM systems. It might pull from a number of cloud systems. But the point is AI operates transactionally only within the sphere of this centralized data that is meant for the AI, which means your project can move forward. And the other problem that it solves is when you're ready or in parallel, the data inside is clean already from the ETL at the point of ingestion. Which means then at some point when you get to the point where you can clean or focus on that system that's plaguing whatever, it's already in its pretty much usable state or clean state. And you can start from there and either model it out further to where it needs to be. But the point here is that people don't need to be stuck. They don't have to not be able to go and move forward because their competition's destroying them. They can still use this strategy or strategies like this. It's not the only strategy. But the point here is there are answers to the solution to get folks unstuck. And a lot of folks that are out there are just completely shell-shocked and frozen and just like, nope, can't move forward. So what do you say to any of that?
So let me again cover the generic AI. Most of the AI implementations and part of the reason why a lot of them probably are failing are driven by heavy budgets and severe AI FOMO. Budgets came in, everybody else is doing it, let's jump on, Excel, AI, data, AI. So just put everything AI. Prioritizing where, spending that time, very little. I mean, I'm telling you, I keep talking to. I don't have many customers in the U.S. Right now, but a lot of my friends work in senior positions in the U.S. Right, non-tech companies say they're having very difficult time explaining. Obviously, they're engineers like me, so they all they're trying to tell them, hey, do this. No, no. So that they're very scared. But at the same time, when budgets come in, hey, throw everything. So, for example, and I'll come to a question, if I may just take 30 seconds. We did a project for a manufacturing company in Thailand, right? They're trading company. So they were using paper files. They were not using Excel. So in fact, we didn't go to the air level. Second phase we did that, but we first just automated. Use Excel, right? When Excel is working, your macros are working, your settings are working. Don't change it, right? Or change it incrementally so you don't disturb it for if something breaks, etc. Don't So those risks are always there. But I'm saying and in any case, not necessarily that complex use cases or simple use cases, go step by step.
Yes.
You could go complex first, simple first, depends on what your business priority is. But the business priority translate to application level, feasibility, and do your ROI numbers and do spend a few more extra days and a few more extra charts and graphs and your internal analysis to make sure you understand what's going to come up with, right? And build your few months of contingency. So right, exactly. So you part talking about ETL, right? Incrementally getting data from multiple different sources, playing with, etc., and then building incrementally. That's true as well, right? And sometimes, and then part of the messy data, right? So AI, obviously, AI has known to, I don't know, I haven't known any people myself, but has known to, AI agents or AI systems have known to clean up developers' databases, their desktops, enterprise data in Alcazar, right? So, I don't know how word probability gets to that level of intelligence, but it can, or, intelligence, kind of, but yeah, it's known to kind of have done things, entire database have been removed, people's, GitHub repositories have been deleted, and so it does funny things, right? Besides, obviously, cooking up stories, right? Sometimes, right? So AI, it's like a system, right? It'll start working and it'll whatever input it takes on data, right? It'll just run on it, right? It'll not think unless you build an agentic layer to each step think, right? So another thing is, when you use a data system or any application system in AI, right? If you're reviewing the output, at a human level, at a human's reviewing the output at each stage, it's different. But if it's in-app feeds, right? One app feeds to the other, to the ERP, the CRM, then to the external customer systems. Something fails that 10 levels later, you keep trying to do root cause analysis for days or weeks, finding out where it failed, right? So that verification loop also needs to be built in. If there are plenty of external free open source paid APIs available, build your verification loop. What your LLMs, your data applications are giving you, verify it through multiple other sources, then pass it forward. High risk elements involve the human intervention, right? Not just human intervention in AI for content creation or the storyboarding or that kind of stuff, but also for your kind of a core transactional database applications or any AI applications, right? So messy data, clean it first. Spend some time to clean it first. Apply to only ones that have been clean and make sure you have have that cleaned enough, right? Data enrichment is a big problem for CRM systems, for example, right? Other system, right? Employee systems, management, workforce systems, right? If you're applying agentic AI to reduce workforce, right, which a lot of companies are doing, right, tech and non-tech, right? Make sure your agents have a retraining continuous model which has the right contextual, relevant, contemporary, and right business use case data which is learning from. I know I don't know how you guys feel about it, but you know, uh, most of the customer service systems which are AI based are basically just automated email responders, right?
Yeah.
Lord, I spent 74 emails over 9 days with a big AI service provider API company to resolve my problem, and they had the same problem across 35, 40 different customers. Something was broken in their payment systems. I called my bank, I called this, I called my third party vendor, etc., my freelance agent, but they didn't tell me. A simple email initially said, hey, you know what, 30, 40 other people also face this problem. Maybe it's something we could fix it. It might take some time, but that could have saved me effort, expectation setting. There are other obviously, but that learning models for your agentic AI for customer system, for example, right? That data, RAG applications, if they don't have data which is relevant or cleaned up and relevant context data, then the context you're getting is actually you're actually messing up the basic LLM answer also, right? So don't use it, right? travel companies, even big travel companies, for example, started with OpenAI to build, AI travel assistant, right? A lot of vertical travel assistants are very limited right now. Yahoo's CEO is doing other things. I won't go. Just finish out 10 seconds. So basically, make sure cleaning up data, and verifying accuracy as well as relevance to your application and to build the use case. Doing incremental is very, very important. Let the project take longer. Let the incremental parts generate ROI incrementally and do it slow rather than throwing the millions of dollars at it and then saying, hey, you know what, it failed. And then they're going to Gartner and say, please publish it. And it failed. You know what I'm saying? Right?
I have an observation that I have witnessed over the last almost decade, and maybe you can help me shed some light on it. It seems that folks that are in, I don't know about Asia as much, but in Europe especially, when compared to the United States, there is a more progressive attitude towards AI or technology as it relates to either automation. It started in automation, to be honest. That's where I first noticed it. But the counterparts here in the United States, the US, I don't know why, but is painfully slow to adopt these types of technologies. For example, as going back to 2022, early to late 2023, when chatbots were all the rage, OpenAI had made its splash, and chatbots were pretty much about the only thing that you can much do with it. Obviously, RAG was just starting to come around. Retrieval augmented generation, for those of you that don't understand the RAG reference. But nonetheless, everybody in Europe was like jumping on this. There was a company that came out of nowhere, N8N, for workflow automation, destroyed Power Automate and other types of tools out there. They have both a paid version and a community version, which really is what bolstered a lot of the use cases. But the point is, it was a European company, mostly serving folks in Europe. I don't know if it's because it was a European company, but the point here is, generally speaking, Europe adopts these trends quicker, faster than the U.S. counterpart. Why is that? I could never figure that out. Do you have any understanding as to why? I mean, you're based out of Mumbai, so you're closer to that whole regional area, and you do work globally. So I was wondering maybe what your experience was.
So actually, exactly. So my last two companies have been core tech. Okay, previous in cybersecurity, we actually had more US customers. This time we have more European customers. We had larger set of customers also. We are early in the stage, in the growth stage right now. But so last year, company with cybersecurity, we had 3 Silicon Valley funded companies, right? We are working with a subcontractor with a government agency, with the US government, right? Obviously not directly because we didn't have a incorporate company in the US. We're working for a partner.
That's good.
But we're doing that. Yeah. Don't sue me later.
Lots of opportunity there. No shortage of opportunity.
No, but yes. So I think what we've noticed with the European landscape, right? And now we don't have an office. We have one person in Europe right now, full time works from home on the outreach part, and we have a couple of partners. We white label and kind of we sell, the consulting here and on site they do as well. They IT as well. Yeah. So what we notice is that when it comes to Europe buying, so Europe in general, it's a more relationship based selling, right? When it comes to technology sales, right? They want to know you, they want to meet you, and a little bit. US, you have a dollar differential. You've shown your track record. Hey, you know what? Yeah, sign the contract. Right? I mean, no disrespect or anything. Both are great, right? No different, right? But I'm saying, so
one's harder than the other. I'll tell you that. It's a lot easier selling into Europe than it is here in the US.
And so the other thing is Europe. European players mostly, they have a tendency to buy from local players as well, right? So a German company would, say apples to apple comparison, or even let's say Apple to Apple plus one, they'll buy from a Finnish vendor easier than maybe from a Indian vendor, or let's say even a Silicon Valley vendor, right? So that's something. But I think in the last few months, the European ecosystem, there's a lot of AI. The wave AI wave is kind of been big, right? Yeah. So I think what I have noticed in this, obviously over the years, let's say 4-5 years where AI has actually picked up really big time, right? US obviously was a much higher acceleration path, but recently Europe has, because there's a lot of capital is flowing, plus a lot of startup ecosystem also bigger, because I kind of follow that as well, right? So but still the buying is still happening. It's still not easy, for example, for an India Mumbai based company to sell directly to Europe. I was a German delegation, last week, right? I met this company, TechPro GDPR, who do GDPR assessment and compliance for companies before IT companies come in, right? We try to work with them and say how we can work together. There's another company that does solar energy. So after physically meeting, actually it took me 2 emails to get a response back. Obviously, we are talking to, etc. I'm not saying, I'm saying, so, they have being a company, being outside the European ecosystem, European physically outside and selling, is very difficult. Even though the kind of adoption rate is, much more accelerated, being a local player, having a local presence, not necessarily an office there, an entity there, legal entity, but somebody to meet and say hello and etc. Just physically, that always helps. But then you can actually in there. So the reason, if you ask, I think it's just kind of dynamics, right? US obviously is kind of saturated also because again, if you look at the Indian companies, right, all the big companies, IT giants, of course, I've had a chance to work for a couple of them at still emphasis, but the TCS, Infosys, yeah, so they're actually just selling add-on contracts to the Goldman Sachs and the big whatever players over the Pfizer's of the world. Had 15 million. Okay, we'll do this in a. We'll worry about it later, right? Let's go for drinks. But Europe is more conscious. So they actually want to look at it. How's it work? And when they know it works, right? Then they just want to go, hey, okay, well, you know what? Solve my other 10 problem also. So the add-on selling is much easier in Europe once you got a first from the customer. In the US, they'll again have that dollar consideration. That's what my experience has been.
Yeah.
But I guess yeah.
Well, that's a real problem and something worth talking about. So again, a lot of our audience members that do participate or watch this are leadership based audience here. Not exclusively, obviously, because it's an internet show, but we do have a lot of leadership that's US based. Surprisingly or not, central US, East Coast, and a little bit of West Coast. But what would you tell leadership that's watching the show? Like, obviously, for all of the reasons that you just mentioned in Europe, what should leadership be mainly focused on in order to get a competitive advantage, say, from their competition here domestically? But even more importantly, if they are having competition that's based out of Europe, because this is a real challenge that needs to essentially be solved. So what are some of the steps that they should be taking? What conversations should they be having with the staff, which staff, et cetera, to kind of get them to a future state or to help solve some of these challenges?
Yeah. So I think again, so, a couple of things, if you're a US-based company, obviously, slight difference if you're Silicon Valley or New York. Silicon Valley is viewed as a, basic tech expertise to the top level, right? You have to solve, let's say, so if you're trying to settle Europe, I think again, I don't want to name companies, but some large, obviously the big hundreds of billion-dollar companies, internet companies, etc. They actually don't even, focus too much spending on, GDPR compliance, specific, more detail. They actually, they're much better off actually paying millions of dollars fines every year. Oh, it happened in France, it happened there. We all know who I'm talking about, but they're several, right? So, but that's a lower cost for them, right? So I think, and a lot of them actually, when they're selling, implementation, obviously they have local partners, etc., and teams, etc., they fly down but on the selling part, they actually sell as US companies, right? Having local presence, and US companies, normally let's say small companies will be different, but let's say a slightly big company, to set up and have a physical office here in Europe, that always helps, that obviously that's a kind of a tactical thing, right? No, they're kind of, actually helps, right? The other thing is, I think, as I said, Europeans, when they know it works, then, they'll add on selling be easier. So I think focusing on not just the GDPR and the EU Act part, right? When it's data or AI specific, right? Or system, right? But focusing on use cases specific, right? There'll always be a language thing, but, that a little bit more because, American companies, and I've actually worked for a Silicon Valley startup, one startup also for 6 months. Like American companies are more, and I worked for a European startup, my first job, in fact, in Finland, before Deloitte. Europeans, American companies, they're, aggressive sales mode, scaling up. It works, scale up, right? attention to more detail, right? And I don't want to go into detail of the data space. I think this is my personal view, with due respect to everybody, all the vendors and all the stakeholders here. The attention to more detail on the specific use cases with the regulations of a GDPR, UX is one, but also in the finer nuances, right? How can translations work? If I'm using, let's say, Llama's open source model, the language model with both, have in the POC, can I show a German plus a French plus a right? Those kind of things will actually help more because and once you get initial things, add-ons, and as I said, it's a lot easier. And obviously, needless to say, it'll save them the biggies. Obviously, it doesn't matter them right now, but say the hundreds of $1 million of fines and compliances, which either they throw up on, right? I think Indian OpenAI has been in one of those controversies recently, the French government or whatever. I'm saying, I think those things are there. And again, as I said, but yeah, but again, and I said, and if it's, let's say, a New York-based company, and if you're an IT company, then see. Obviously, I'm sure when you say New York IC company, you must be selling financial services, right? Focus on the same verticals, right? If it's a tech or second company, and do a tech or selling, so that's the separate part. But then that's anyway.
Yeah.
Whether you
I'm glad.
If I went to India, if you consider India, right? If you're saying to India, in fact, India has a big $1 billion budget also in AI, right? Right? In India, selling as a US company actually is a lot easier than selling as an Indian company to Indian stakeholders. So if you're an Indian product company or solutions company, and you sell to a Godrej or whatever, a Reliance or the big players, right? You come as a US product company or product service company, that's an easier sell. Here it's different, right? Not necessarily on the branding part, not just on the cost or the kind of details part, right? And in general, right, it's obviously, it's when you're selling products or solutions, you're not just selling, it's not the best feature product that gets sold. It's all about other factors. But yeah, those are things I think in my experience.
You hit on something extremely important, and this is probably more visible now because of AI and the conversations around AI visibility. But this brings back an issue where visibility platforms, visibility systems, and just as a quick reminder, not to kind of beat the horse to death with AI, but AI presents a good opportunity because usually, depending on the vertical, depending on the industry that you're in, there may already be a commercially available off-the-shelf software platform to give you the visibility that you need to get more information if you're in leadership. However, there's a tremendous opportunity for you to build custom visibility platforms and software within your industry, within your company. And it is going to solve this problem that allows you to get to that future state. And I think a lot of times people don't want to invest in maybe a project that will give them this tool that they so desperately need. And, I'd say this is equally as important for the folks in Europe, too, because it really goes back to that. They're way more susceptible, but they're baking it into the solutions rather than build a platform. It's like whatever solution are on or working through, they're building these visibility components or modules to the solution or whatever. And that's good and fine as long as architecturally those niche siloed or specific niche systems are reporting into a much larger hopper, data collection, data lake, whatever you want to say, using tools like Splunk or even AI analytics or whatever to get deeper into that. But the key or the point is multiple strategies either way. Either build something as a whole platform for your team or for the company to give you that visible intelligence that's there. And yes, unfortunately, it creates more data, but information is king. And I think that that can really go a long ways. What's your take on that type of strategy? Whether they're building?
Yeah, I think that's yeah. So I think that's obviously as an add-on strategy that works as well. So again, see, obviously you talked about see data anyway. AI is created anyway 70% plus is underutilized, and data is creating more and more data, right? In this ecosystem. So and that's actually for people like us, it's good because there's room to play, and we can actually play with ecosystem part. We should make mistakes and still be able to make an earning at the end of the day, right? But that's obviously giving visibility to is obviously a great strategy, and that works very well. It's not about a sales tax or best selling. That's also important. And again, you mentioned ETL earlier, right? Using ETL, using I'll give you an example. Actually it's a reverse example. There's a US company, healthcare company again. They actually for years are using European data platforms. They use consulting of US companies. They can use consulting of Indian companies as well, Pune, Bangalore based India. But they use a Swiss platform, data platform, right, for years, right? Because they love that. Because again, I mean, maybe I'm repeating my point, but the attention to detail in that platform, they kind of, is very much, it's a healthcare based platform only, is, is so good that they don't leave them, right? There is a bunch of other players that come up, etc., right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so, so visibility at the, at the top level as well as at the, kind of, in different other levels also is very important, right? Because, whenever future work comes, there'll be people, your tech managers, your business managers are going to actually talk about, hey, what, last implementation, this something, we had this thing, and that could become showstopper, or that could, etc., right? That's very important. So yeah, again, so obviously, and it's like, so, for, obviously I've not been in a kind of a position of being a CEO of a big company, but when something's selling like hotcakes, you kind of, don't move the, move the ship, right? You say, okay, let's sell, right? If something interesting, yeah, let's buy them out. It's easier. Let's keep this ship as it is. Buy them out. Additional sales, great. Numbers to show to the market, stock market, or whatever, right? But when so smaller companies obviously have a lot of way to innovate, and you can actually say, try this, try that, etc. So, but yeah, obviously, there are innovation teams, there are innovation officers in a lot of big product companies also, and consulting companies also. That's important, right? Again, I talked about the Deloitte thing. Deloitte is trying to you impose a platform, for 19,000, 90% of the 90,000 enterprise customers globally, right? I feel, and I've not just because I've worked for Deloitte for 3 years, I was way back. I feel, doing that, they will actually need partners to actually, that intelligence, because they haven't done so much more hardcore tech oriented implementations, right? So they need partners to actually support that, right? For example, companies like this Tech Pro GDPR, to do compliance with GDPR, or for feasibility, etc. While they implement, I'm sure they will reach the 90% implementation. So that's something, that's there again, visibility to what's coming up, right? And internal, stakeholder visibility, etc. is very important, right? Whether and so so those things are important. So that's definite. And I think because the in the general AI world, right? Because the failure rate kind of, at least the numbers talk about huge failure rate. Even the agentic AI systems, and kind of expecting 90% plus growth rate, etc. And everybody has agentic AI FOMO is a big thing right now, right? Y Combinator having funded a lot of agentic platforms. Now they think 50% will shut down. That's another thing. But what happening? What's more important is that that innovation part, that intelligence part. A lot of these product companies, the big ones, small ones, everybody, they sell AI automation, AI decision intelligence to their customers. Internally, they don't use it. They still follow the old models, right? I think they should, they should use it more so as well. This is something actually I know that they're not, because again, obviously, as I said, something that's giving more revenue, they want to shake it. That's fine. But for example, and again, a large CRM company, for example, they actually, they've invested in like 10 CRM add-on intelligence products over the last couple of years, rather than adding that layer to themselves. Maybe they're integrating, of course, right? So secondly, so I think that part is also important. But yeah, exactly, right? Internally, you got to use that as well, because the way the landscape is changing in the corporate. Some people are saying lot more smaller companies will come in, and be a lot more smaller companies than few big ones, because so that the FOMO is at the business level, the strategic level, the technical, everything, right? But simple things like using your internal tools, interpreters, possibly doing an audit of assessment, understanding what your unused applications, what the opportunity cost is there, not just the space it occupies, the infrastructure it takes, right, or how systems slow down. That the corporates as well as consulting companies doing that, product companies, not just for the targeted implementations, but as part of their audit assessments, etc., to build a solution is going to be very important is in future selling, because value-added selling, value-based selling is going to become more and more important, especially when LLM models become more trained. They're talking about LLMs on physical model, physics model, etc. Right? So that's very important. I'll give you an example. A company like HCL recently invested in an India-only sovereign LLM model called Sarvam AI. They invested $150 million. We hadn't seen a president of an Indian IT services company actually investing in another company. They will always go after customers, or try to get local, but not investing. So that's changing, right? So and again, obviously that's part of also because OpenAI, Anthropic, as well as Google are all getting into IT services. AI-based IT services, and spending billions on that, right? So again, right? So I think so look at, for example, look at Cloudy's when they launched their plugin, right? The legal plugin plus the other thing. Within one day, $248 billion are lost in the stock market, right? Indian IT giants are down 7, 8, 10% a day, right? Right? That's a huge lot of money, right? In Indian context, right? The US companies are so obviously recovered over time, right? And people made the CEOs made shape, no, it's not gonna happen. But the reality is OpenAI launched, they quickly wrapped it up and launched the model. Big couple others launches, right? Now with all these new innovation, the excellence is happening. You have to build, kind of robust systems behind it, and the more visibility plus the innovation depth you put into your solutions, in your strategy to sell and implement, that just builds more immunity and more ability to scale further, whether small, big companies or larger companies. And I think that's very important. Yeah.
I put your email here on the screen, and
Yeah.
I am going to try to share this screen for your website live there. So if
Yeah.
folks come to your site and they click on contact and they scroll down a little bit, they'll find the email address that's on the screen there in the banner, but also they have the form here that they can fill out. Are these the best methods for folks to reach out to you? Or
That's the best methods. And obviously, I'm happy to connect to on LinkedIn as well. Actually, there are two Shishir Sharans on LinkedIn. The one with the Datenintelligenz is this is the one, yeah. So if you can share that URL if you're possible, because that's the old account. It was a big hassle to renew it. So I actually created a new one 18 months back. So actually happy to connect on LinkedIn as well. And then because I spent a lot of time there. That's the best way, to reach out, and then I respond very quickly on it doesn't have to be necessary on a project based thing, right? I like to not a brag mode or anything, but I do entrepreneurship because I love it, right? So I like to brainstorm, I like to brainstorm ideas, and previous business, my add-on investor was somebody who I just started talking. He became a customer investor. He invested second level, right? So I think that's kind of it always pays off as well eventually, right? For example, I run a platform, inquiret.tech, right? INQIRET.tech. Inquiret comes from Latin to know. Where actually, I put, simple business workflows, into a free apps platform where the users never have to pay, right? It's 62 apps. Now we'll be 250 apps by end of this year. And we've got already 30,000, 40,000 app instances in 4 months. Now we started as an inclusive effort, but it's already broken even because we've got 3 consulting assignments of deep tech build with larger players, right? So, but I'm not saying, happy to connect, communicate, and if there's something we can work together. Awesome. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Shishir, it's been a distinct pleasure to have this interview and have this conversation with you. Obviously, we barely scratched the surface on any and everything as it relates to AI. If folks go to your website, there's a lot of verticals, there's a lot of topics, there's challenges and problems to be solved in each of them. And geographically, you mentioned Germany. Germany has its own, I can never pronounce this, I can't speak German, but it's basically guys, something or other. It is, I could just call it GDPR on steroids, essentially. I refer to it. So the point here is there's compliance regulatory challenges at each of the areas, at the geo level, at the country level, and then of course even at the vertical level. And Shishir is an absolute subject matter expert in all of those areas. So make sure you guys reach out to him. As far as the Transformation Leaders podcast, we're here every Wednesday. And if you haven't missed or haven't caught any of our previous shows before, if you go to the transformationleaderspodcast.com, click on episodes. All of our episodes are there and online. You can catch us on LinkedIn, YouTube, any number of ways of doing it. And so anyway, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us there. Again, Sean will be back next week. Unfortunately, he got ill, and again, he's on the mend. He's okay, and we'll see him back here.
I'll be coming soon, Good.
But look forward to it. And hopefully maybe when Sean's back, we can reconnect in the future and continue the conversation.
Awesome. Thanks for having me here, David. And as I said, great to hear from anybody, on LinkedIn, on email, and, I'll be quick to respond. And thank you once again. It was lovely chatting with you. Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.